Hey, 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 hey. How are you guys out there? Welcome to Coffee, Tea, You, and Me, another episode of our weekly broadcast where we talk to entrepreneurs and business leaders about the things they need to do, the things they need to know, the people they need to understand in order to maximize the opportunities and maximize the success of everything they do. Today, you caught us in the middle of a series that we've been doing for quite a few weeks now. And this series is all about the VisionQuest 90 process, which is a process that I created to help people to really, really get to the level of success they want to get to right away. And so, if you are needing some fine tuning on your vision and your mission and your habits, the goals that you may have, or the contacts and how you engage with the contacts and all those things, then the Vision Quest 90 is the right process for you. And this is a great opportunity to learn more and more about how you do business. Now, some of you are following us for the first time, and let me explain to you how it works here. We are a full on all engagement opportunity for entrepreneurs and business leaders. We try to make sure that we hold nothing back and we share as much as we possibly can. If you have a question about anything involving your business, anything involving how to be more successful, anything that a great coach can answer a question for you on maximizing your effort in understanding how to perform at high levels to really, really bring the best out of yourself and the people that you work with. Quite often, ask the question. If there's something that you're interested in, ask the question. We may get around to talking about those things in this episode, but for sure, if we don't get around to talking about those things, put them in the chat because somebody could answer them, even if it's outside of me, that can see it on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, wherever you are watching today's program. But also, I like to go back and get those questions and pick them up, and I'll answer those questions in future episodes, which helps me create the content that we get to create. So I need your engagement. If you haven't already logged on to the chat, make sure you share with us where you're watching from. And even if you're watching again, if you're watching the on-demand version of this particular video later on, you can always still participate in the chat. So make sure that you are logging in where you're calling in from or where you're watching from, what your business is. If you want to give a shout out to your business, links that people may want to follow up with when it comes to events that you're doing or any type of discounts or programs that you're offering for your business, put it out there. We want you to engage. We want you to, let us know who you are, what you're all about, all that kind of good stuff. Put it in the chat. Don't keep your business a secret. If you are doing something, I promise you, it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be a great opportunity for you to share what you're doing with others. And this is what we're trying to present and offer to every single entrepreneur, every single business leader, every single person who follows this program every single Friday. And so you have to imagine that I've been doing this now online for more than, I'm going to say, how long have we been doing this? Since COVID. So I don't know how many episodes that is, but every Friday we've been broadcasting live. I used to sit down in coffee shops with entrepreneurs and business leaders here in Northern Virginia area, and then just whoever showed up, we worked with, right? So that was my famous group coaching session. I called it Coffee Tea You and Me. Now we have a Coffee Tea You and Me online, and we're not going back to just the coffee mix. We're all going to go back to that, but I'll be including the online component at the same time. And so I just want you to know that, this is a great opportunity that we're going to offer opportunities to share our favorite books, our favorite resources, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about habits and this whole concept of what habits are and how habits work for you when you do and understand and embrace them correctly. Now, here's the problem with that understanding and embracing process of habits. The core problem we find is that people are engaging in habits. In fact, our habits drive everything we do, always, all the time. As human beings, we are a function of our habits, right? And we know this to be true. But the main and the core problem with getting control of our habits and being able to define for ourselves with a level of independence on who we want to be or become is that our habits are unconscious. Let me say that again. Most of what we do every day, all day, is unconscious. We're not in control of whoever and whatever is driving the bus on a regular, consistent basis. Now, I know some of you are going to challenge me on this. All right. But this is not stuff that Marvin created. This is the world of sociological and psychological research and experience of over thousands of years of human development. We have understood habits dictate how we think habitually, and then we behave habitually. And so if we want to get something or do something more, the core essential thing we have to change is how our habits hit. And then over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about 1,000 different techniques and strategies. Well, not 1,000, but quite a few different techniques and strategies that you could use to update and change your habits. But today, I'm going to give you a broad overview of what we're going to discuss in the coming weeks and why we're going to discuss it, so that you can get a feel for what we're talking about. First thing we're going to do is we're going to set the stage by talking about the actual truth of habits. And I already given you a brief kind of understanding that the truth about habits is something that a lot of us feel, some kind of way about. We're not happy about the fact that most of our habits are unconscious and out of our control. They're just unconscious and they're out of our control. That's a fact of habits. That's the truth of the thing. And our habits dictate what we do, how we think, what our possibilities are. When you stack up all our habits, they dictate what our reality is. So if you think about the future, my good friend Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I'm going to paraphrase that statement and say, let me Coach Powellize it, and let you know that the habits that you developed thus far have gotten you where you are right now. But I can guarantee you that if you don't change those habits, they won't get you to where you want to be in the future. Because your future is one of those things that you have a lot of control over when you learn the techniques we're going to talk about later on. But the reality is there's a problem with your current habits. Is you can't change what you're not aware of. And we're going to talk about that. Why aren't you aware of what's going on with you? And how do you first become aware of what habits you currently have and aware of the habits that you might need to move yourself into your glorious future? And then we're going to talk about the 8 superpowered habits of the successful people that I have had the pleasure of working with in the past. And I'm going to call these Coach Powell's 8 superpowers. I'll let you work with me on what I'm going to call it, but I like the superpowers, right? Because I like to use superheroes and the superhero analogies a lot. But if you embrace some of the things we're going to share with you that we've shared with clients in the past about how to engage and then change and grow your habits correctly, then you're going to find that you too have the superpowers needed to move yourself into the next level, whatever that next level is for you, and then the next level, and then the next level, and the next level. We're going to talk about the benefits of habit tracking, the tools, the techniques, some of the lingo. You're going to learn what habit stacking is all about and how that works. We're going to talk about what the Bible and other great books in history of the past have said about habits, and about how if you start to engage in habits that inform your higher level of spiritual thinking, then those habits are going to lead you to places that are going to help you thrive. And we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the famous people that are out there and what their thoughts on self-mastery might be. Because if you're not in control of yourself, how are you mastering yourself? Right? And how do you what does self-mastery look like? What does it feel like? What are the tools and techniques that are out there? And then, finally, we're going to talk about all of the tools and how they work in terms of helping you become the person that you're supposed to be. And so we're going to plug into destiny-minded thinking, visionary thinking, how that helps to drive and control and manage your habits. Now, all this to say that habits is just a part of your task orientation, some people will call it. It's just a part of the VisionQuest 90 system. It's just a part of what it takes to create alignment and to grow alignment in that space. And there's a quote that I want to share with you that sort of sets the stage for some of the ideas we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. Will Durant said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." Now, as an executive coach, small business coach, my essential job is to help people to engage in behavior in a way that they can maximize their success. That's what the VisionQuest 90 system is all about. That it teaches you the tools, the techniques, the strategies to do that. But the most important part of planning, in my point of view, as a behavioral coach, is, do you have the space to work out? Do you have the space to repeat behavior? Do you have the space to discipline yourself to do something over and over and over and over again? Do you have the resources? Do you have the time? Do you have the talent? Do you have the money required to make it all happen? I call it the T3 model, right? Time, talent, treasure. Do you have those resources available to you to engage in a new thing, a new habit, right? And I like that because Durant backs me up and says, we are what we repeatedly do. Well, how do you repeatedly do anything without discipline? How do you repeatedly do anything without the space to do so? It matters greatly whether you can or you will or you won't, or how you go about doing all these things. And your habits have to be a part. There has to be a repetition. There has to be a measurement. There has to be a goal. There has to be a reason for the goal, which is your mission. There has to be a reason for the mission, which is your vision. There has to be a community in which you can exist in order to validate that you're doing and saying the right things repeatedly. So all these things are part of the VisionQuest 90 process. And that's why I love this quote from Durant, because it requires strategy, technique, discipline, oversight, accountability, all those things, transparency, all those things are all required to really, really get into this process of developing the right habits. So they say, he goes on to say, excellence, but we are what we repeatedly do, right? We said that. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. If excellence is a habit, then what is it built on? It's built on the discipline, right? It's built on your ability to try out new things enough in order for it to become what we call muscle memory, right? If you're doing things, again, your habits, we talked about this earlier, if your habits are unconscious, how do you then turn what is unconscious from a conscious behavior into unconscious? You do it through repetition. You do it through discipline. You do it through systems of measurement. You do it through accountability. You do it through transparency. You do it through all these things. Habit change is hard. And not knowing how to engage or why to engage in the change of habit makes habit change impossible. That's right. I said it first. You cannot change a habit you're not even aware of. You can't even embrace a new habit you're not aware of. And if you don't have systems and strategies in place that actually work for you, then you won't change that habit. I know people tell you all the time, you may have heard it, it takes 21 days to change a habit. That's a rule of thumb. I'm calling BS on that. It doesn't take 21 days to change a habit. It takes excellence in process to change a habit. And you have to understand which processes work best for you. You can change a habit in 10 days. You can change a habit in 6 months. It really depends on you understanding for you the nature of the habit that you're trying to embrace, the tools that you have available for you to make that habit change, your ability to embrace new tools and use old tools on top of new tools. I gave you a hint about habit stacking. We'll get into that a little later on, in order to truly engage in the change. Why is any of this important? If you do not change and embrace habit change, then you simply will not experience the benefits of having done so. Now, what are those benefits? There are many benefits when it comes to embracing habit change. And one of the core benefits, obviously, is you change how you think. Basically, you rewire your brain, right? This is necessary if you want to achieve goals. It's imperative if you want to maximize your productivity. It's critical if you want to stay on task. It's totally meaningful if you want to be able to successfully nurture collaborations, if you want to increase trust, if you want to better communicate, if you want to manage your time better, if you want to boost your efficiency, if you want to promote reliance, you have to learn how to master yourself and how you change and how you grow. So there's some examples I'm going to give. There's some people I want you to think about. There's some books I want you to read. And one of the greatest books starts with, understanding growth strategy and the growth mindset, right? This is the researcher, Dr. Carol Dweck, who's one of the premier, excellent social science researchers and deliverers of information. She's going to teach you all of the tactical and critical benefits of habits and how they work. And I'm going to talk to you about a lot of that in a couple weeks. We're going to get into that. Then I want you to think about reading everything you possibly can read about emotional intelligence, because you need to understand that underneath your ability to change your habits has a lot to do with your ability to understand your emotions and how your emotions play into how that works. So if you want to go ahead and Google that and start using AI or search tools or whatever, understand more about emotional intelligence, I suggest you do that. The other thing we want to get into when it comes to habits is learning how to align your habits with the most important aspects of your planning, of your own professional or executive structural development. There's a thing called executive presence. What is that? What are the habits of those who have executive presence? Meaning, when they walk in the room, you feel as though they literally ooze command authority. That's an old military term. They have the charisma and the confidence in themselves that kind of comes out in how their character shows up. When you have that kind of executive presence, I'm going to call it executive presence, people tend to listen to what you have to say. And when you say something, it tends to matter a little bit more, actually a lot more, than when you don't have it. And so we're going to get into all of this stuff so that when you start to learn where you are, because there's a spectrum, right? When you look at habits, you're either good at changing your habits or you're horrible at changing your habits, all depending on the situation at the time, right? Because there's situational habit change that has to happen too. I don't care how well your plans are developed and how good you are at implementing your plans. Every once in a while, something's going to happen at the macro level that's going to impact how you deal with even the smallest behavioral change. And so you have to be aware of those things as well. Let's kickstart everything off with a story. I'm going to tell you a story today about Dr. Samuel. Dr. Samuel, one of my clients, lived in the bustling city of New York City, New York. He was an exceptionally experienced orthopedic surgeon, renowned for his surgical skills, the fact that he'd been practicing for over 3 decades, had a brilliant reputation. Everybody loved him. Children were grown and out of the house. It was just him and his wife. And, he had done everything thus far super successfully. The problem that Dr. Samuels experienced in real time was that the fact that after years had passed, the field of orthopedics had undergone such a rapid evolution. There were new technologies, new methodologies, all that were introduced, changing the norms and the expectations of the profession. People were doing robotic surgeries. They were doing minimally invasive procedures, and advanced imaging techniques became the new standard for how they would measure the success of any procedure. Despite these changes, Dr. Samuel remained steadfast in his way. He believed in his tried and true method and was reluctant to adopt any new norms. He continued and persisted in performing surgeries the old-fashioned way, disregarding any announcements or advancements in the field. No matter how good the research was or how wonderful, all of the different procedures were, he just wanted to stick to what he knew. He wanted to stick to what he's good at. I mean, he had already mentored hundreds of younger surgeons, and even those younger surgeons later on in his career tried to convince him to adapt these new technologies. They explained that the benefits of these advancements, made sure that patients recovered faster, made sure that because the procedures were less invasive, there was less negative or bad outcomes when it comes to infection and different things. And, you know, unfortunately, Dr. Samuel was set in his ways, and he resisted even the best advice from his younger, um, sometimes students, sometimes just proteges. As time went on, his refusal to adapt began to affect his practice. Patients started to prefer surgeons who used the latest techniques and the latest technologies because they were posted everywhere. People start saying like, "Oh, this is a brand new procedure for this," and his patients would ask him about this procedure or whatever. Because now we have, think about it, we have all these devices and techniques with immediate access to lots of information that we never had before. And while his reputation started to falter, his once thriving practice began to struggle to keep up with the changing times. Despite all of this, Dr. Samuel remained stubborn. He believed that somehow through miraculous, intervention, that his experience and his traditional methods were superior to these new technologies, and he didn't need to waste his time with it. However, the reality is that he was left far behind in an ever evolving field. Now, I'm hoping as you all listen to the story, you're thinking that Dr. Samuel serves as a reminder of the importance in every field of human endeavor, the importance of adaptability. Traditional methods, traditional techniques have a tremendous value in history, but it's crucial to stay updated with the latest advancements, understand the new norms as they become new norms, because the failure to do so can lead to professional stagnation and decline. There's a lesson here about the importance of lifelong learning in every profession and the willingness to change and adapt in the face of progress. Now, I'm not saying these are the only answers that we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks, because it's all about your behavior when it's all said and done. But I will tell you, if you concentrate on understanding what habits are, just for this little time period that we're going to work together, and you understand how your habits have affected your trajectory thus far and how they're going to affect your trajectory in the future, and you understand how to unwind those unconscious habits that are problematic and replace those with new conscious behaviors that can then become unconscious, forward thinking, forward moving behaviors, then you can open yourself up to a bright and glorious future, not in the long term, but in the short term, because you're going to be having an experience that is a bit of a catharsis in the way things are done, in the way you experience the world around you, and the way the world experiences you. And it's going to be very, very meaningful to not just what you get to do, but who you get to become. Habits of all the aspects of the VisionQuest 90 system is, in my point of view, the most important part of the system. All the parts of the system are incredibly important, but habits are the most important parts. Your vision affects your habits. Your mission affects your habits. Your goals affect your habits. Your connections and your community affect your habits. And your habits will affect all of those things too. So it is an ever ongoing continuous loop that we as human beings have to understand in totality how it all works in order to maximize our performance, our behavior, and greatly change our experiences as we move forward in life and in business. I see a lot of my friends out there from various different aspects. They're watching from YouTube, they're watching from LinkedIn, they're watching from Facebook. I'm so glad to have you out here. I remind you all to make sure you put your information in the chat. Make sure that you engage with any questions that you would have if about today's topic or anything else in the future. And I hope that you are going to enjoy the rest of this series as we move forward. Because as we move forward in habit change, there's so much to embrace and there's so much to involve and engage around. And I'm hoping that you're going to be actively participating and go with me as we move forward. My name is Coach Powell from Coach Powell Training Development. Again, if you have any questions, my information is scrolling across the screen. I'd like to take a moment to thank my brothers, the Brothers Phi Beta Sigma, for sponsoring today's effort and making sure there's a brother's pointer right there, making sure that they are well represented, because they do a lot to help me push the message out to small businesses. And I really appreciate the efforts and allowing me to be the bigger and better business coordinator for the chapter and create opportunities here in Northern Virginia for small businesses to grow, and helping use the tools along with my talents and abilities as a coach, but also the abilities for them to help promote and help create ideas that really drive tremendous success to small business leaders here. Having said all of that, I have to say goodbye, good evening, and good night. What a wonderful session. What a wonderful time. I'm glad you spent and had this time with me, with you. And I'm looking forward to next week. We'll be broadcasting next week from the International Convention of Phi Beta Sigma down in Tampa, Florida. And hopefully I'll find a nice spot somewhere in the midst of the convention where you can see, the brothers walking by and all the good activities that we're going to be doing. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in Tampa next Friday. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.